Thank you, Itmala, and welcome to all the participants in this curtain raiser session of series of 4 sessions, in fact, on broadly corporate social responsibility, and we will be reflecting on especially the civil society organization or the NGO's role in this emerging scenario in development and even to some extent the market dynamics. So today we'll start with a conceptual discussion on corporate social responsibility, and the primary purpose of this is to not to really answer any question but to raise many answers so that we develop our own perspective, our corporate social responsibilities, and try to see that what would be the civil society organization's role in this kind of new market scenario. In the next following sessions, we will be discussing about the new legislation on corporate social responsibility. The new Companies Act is prescribing corporate social responsibility and investment from the corporate in some sort of social responsibility activities. So we'll be discussing that. We'll also discuss the dimensions of partnership with the corporate, civil society organization and corporate partnership. And we will also discuss about accountability of civil society organization in this kind of new emerging scenario. To start with corporate social responsibility, as we know that in the last decade or so, a little more than a decade, actually we have seen tremendous amount of change in our social dimension in the market scenario, even in the dimensions of governance. And if we see that some of the things what has happened that as civil society organization, we see that our traditional role probably has gone through a huge amount of transition. If you see that today, actually corporate, the Confederation of Indian Industry is organizing this kind of webinar for corporate social responsibility for civil society organization and NGOs. This is a new phenomenon. I think in 10 years back, you will probably agree with me, CII or this kind of business federations or even corporate didn't have much of interest on civil society organizations. And on the other side, civil society organizations probably didn't share the same ground with the corporates or the business organizations. So this is a kind of new scenario, new phenomena, and we see that with the liberalization of economy, with the global changes, this new phenomena has come up. If you look at 10 years back, many civil society organizations in third world countries and even in India, they were actually very, very vocal against WTO, against globalization, against this open market economy, this kind of neo-capital economy, capitalist economy. But today we see that there is a different kind of change, different change attitude from civil society organization and from the business side also. And we see that at least an increased interest about each other has emerged in this kind of new scenario. Now, before getting into the prescribed format of of corporate social responsibility or the business responsibility, whatever the name we call it, sometimes we call it as sustainability, as business responsibility, corporate citizenship, whatever the name we call it. Let us look at this phenomena from a macro perspective. Now, if we look at the 3 sectors, the government sector, the civil society organization sector or the NGO sector, what we call the third sector, and the business sector, the interaction and equation between these 3 sectors, as we have discussed now, has been changing and it is going through a huge transition. Now, look at the new phenomena. Now, the business community by itself has really got into a different responsibility, and they accepted a different kind of responsibility. And from the other sectors, from the government sector and the civil society organization sectors, there is a legitimatized expectation on the business community for a new responsibility. This new responsibility is not only to make profit, It is not only to make generate employment, but to responsible for many other social, environmental, and economic issues. So let us first look at that phenomena, that expectation from the both sides. Is that something really we think that a legitimate expectation from the business community, or the business should actually do only business? They should actually concentrate on making profit, generating income, and generating employment. Because as civil society organization, I mean, we observe, act, and react from outside the structure and the system of governance. We really react and act from outside the structure of the market. So we, as a community, have a bigger responsibility to understand that is this phenomena what is is what is looking like an obvious change, is what kind of consequence we'll have out of this kind of change. Now, narrowly, what we see is that because of the new act, new legislation, there's an increased interest from both sides about corporate social responsibility. We see that the NGO sector generally, I mean, I'm not saying that all NGOs, but generally there's a kind of interest because there would be a lot of fund available. What we are expecting, the corporate will be investing a lot of money in the social development or environmental aspects, but before getting into that operational relationship, partnership, it might be a confrontation or collaboration, but before getting into that, we need to understand that what kind of equation is emerging. Now, if we look at these changes, we can explain these changes in different terms. One term could be instrumental, that what are the functional requirements of this kind of change. Now, in that, probably what we can understand that, okay, there are social risks involved, there are different kind of compliance risks involved. If you want to do a good business and smoothly run a business, then probably you will have to take care of some of the social aspects, you will have to take care of the environmental aspects, so that you can mitigate the risks, you can meet the expectations, and also you can be compliant to some of the norms. Especially in the new scenario in India, we see that the New Companies Act is mandating that, so that for compliance the business would have to be responsible, or at least to do some activity or invest money in some of the social activities. If you see that there is another aspect of normative kind of explanation, that business should, as they are making money, as they are using our environment, they are using our social space, they should. So this is a kind of normative argument, normative theory, saying that business should not only make money, should not only generate income or employment, but they should be doing many, much more than those narrow perspective of business. The third aspect is very interesting. It is a political and legitimate aspect, that whether the responsibility is what we are expecting from the business sector, whether it's a kind of legitimate responsibility for the business sector. Now, in last few years, in last decade or so, what we have seen that the boundaries of each of these sectors has really blurred. For example, one transnational company who is actually operating its business across political borders, they will have influence and responsibilities across the border globally. But a government, for example, India government definitely will have its influence and power within Indian territory. Now, one side, with the globalization and the liberal market economy and the kind of new capitalist economy, at least the transnational corporates, they are becoming more and more influential, more and more powerful, and probably they should accept more and more responsibilities across the border, where the government cannot actually operate across the border. That is one side, the political side. On the other side, we see that there is another argument, that what they are saying is that this whole CSR discourse by itself is a movement to establish the power of transnational companies over government and the civil society organizations. So what they are saying, by accepting these broader roles and responsibilities, in a way, they are trying to exert more power, more influence on the society, on the environment, and to some extent to the governance. Now, these are the theoretical, perspectives what we need to look at. And as I said that, civil society organization, sometimes we actually look at the whole changes in a very narrow perspective, in a very reactive mode. But at the same time, let us be a little more analytical and let us actually look at the macro perspective and try to see that whether this kind of change, try to understand the change, what is happening, and see that how do we place ourselves as a community, civil society organization community, as an NGO community, as a sector, or even individual NGOs, that what should be our role to play. Sometimes it is collaborative, sometimes it might be not so collaborative, it might be a little bit of, confronting relationship, what we should actually be playing in this kind of scenario. Now, there is a dichotomy. If you see the, some of the theories, if you look at, some of the theories and some of the statements, what actually some of the business, the management gurus and also some of the economists, what they have stated. First of all, I will draw your attention to this Peter Drucker's statement. What he is saying is that corporate social responsibility is a dangerous distortion of business principles. If you find an executive who wants to take on social responsibilities, fire him fast. Now, in this statement, what probably the underlying philosophy is that about efficiency, whether by taking up more responsibilities, what is not understood as the core responsibility of a business, probably we are trying to minimize the efficiency level of a particular business or the business community, so that the business should do business. The second, if you look at the second quotation, what Milton Friedman is saying is that there is one and only one social responsibility of business: to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profit, so long as it stays within the rules and rules of the game, which is to say, engage is open and free competition without deception or fraud. Now, these guys, what they're saying, these are actually even, it's not long back. In 2004, Peter Drucker has made this statement. What they're arguing is that business should do business. They should not get involved in the other things that will challenge the efficiency to do business. The other aspect, what, people are arguing is that, I'm actually raising this question so that we can have a clear reflection on the new changes, what is happening. The other argument what the corporate sector is facing is that whether, in India, definitely it is a legislation, so that, as a matter of compliance, everybody will have to invest certain amount of money to corporate social responsibility. But globally, if you look at the money being spent for corporate social responsibility, that is actually the executives are making the decisions. The business executives are making the decisions on behalf of the investors. Now, what is the primary purpose of investment by these investors? It is to make profit, it is to do business, and it is to generate more income. It is not for anything else. But another contradiction here it is that whether the business money, the investors' money should be spent something more than business. So that is another aspect of argument what actually the business community by itself is trying to answer and try to see that what should be, how they can legitimize their new responsibility, what they are now accepting as a new responsibility and being expected to perform this responsibility, and how they can actually invest their time, money, effort in something more than business. Now, If you look at this contradiction, the dichotomy is between one is that efficiency and the legitimacy. One school saying is that business should do business. So if they do anything else, they cannot do good in that sector because they are not experienced and they don't have that expertise to do something in other sectors, in environmental, social, and other things. And also that will probably reduce their efficiency to do business. The other school is saying that the legitimate, when we are trying to legitimatize corporate social responsibility, what we are trying to say is that as corporate, it's more of a sociological argument that as we are saying that the business as a social institution, they have a social responsibility. As you know that corporates are actually incorporated persons. So corporate is actually legally looked at as a person. It is not a group of people. It is not a business. It's actually more of a pseudo person legally. So that as any social entity, as any social individual, corporate as an individual has certain amount of social responsibility, and they should actually perform these responsibilities for the society. Now this dichotomy will remain. I think there would be people, they would always argue that business should do business, should not do something more than that. At the same time, many people would be expecting, and some business would also argue that business should not only make profit, but they should actually take up much broader role and responsibilities. Now, with these kind of changes, it is not only the businesses are changing, but you will have to see that as a system, if it is a kind of interrelation between the business, the corporate, and the governance, then once the business is changing and we can see that how market is emerging as a driving force for almost everything, including development, then the reciprocal relationship of the civil society organization and government is is also changing. It is very natural that it will also change to maintain that kind of equilibrium of the system. So in this kind of emerging scenario, again, we'll have to see that what is exactly that changed role and responsibility of civil society organization. What is the kind of different equation we are getting into with the market, with the corporates, with the businesses, and even with the government. And accordingly, we'll have to position ourselves and try to see very neutrally and very independently, as that is probably the main strength of a civil society organizations, or should be the main strength of the civil society organizations, that what kind of equation we will try to build on. So with that, as I said that few people are saying that one is that efficiency challenge, that argument. The other argument is saying that the business, they want to exert more influence and more power on the society, and that is why very consciously they are trying to getting into a broader responsibility. Now let us look at this statement from William Clay Ford Jr., the grandson of the great Henry Ford. He thinks, and this is very interestingly, this statement was given in a forum of Greenpeace. He says that I believe very strongly that corporations could and should be a major force for resolving social and environmental concerns in the 21st century. As chairman of one of the world's largest corporations, I am in a unique position to be a catalyst for change. Now, this is something what he is assuming, that as a corporate, they have a bigger responsibility and have bigger influence and power on many other things, so that as a corporate, that particular corporate has can actually act as a catalyst for change. Now, so what we need to see that these are the new phenomena. These are the transition we are going through. One hand, we are actually assuming new responsibilities and broader responsibilities for the business. On the other hand, we try to see that it has a reciprocal effect on the civil society organization and of course on the government, and we try to see that how do we equate that as a civil society organization, especially in India, in third world countries like India. Now, as you know that in 10 years back or 15 years back, probably we never had this kind of discussion. We never had any thought even, how to engage with the corporate, whether we should collaborate, we should confront, whatsoever. We were very much, separated in what kind of compartments. Civil society organizations are doing their work, business were doing their work, and there was no common ground to share. But at this point of time, whether we believe in or not, whether we accept it or not, there is a kind of a lot of commonalities of the purpose and the actions of civil society organizations and businesses. And rather being reactive, we should be proactively engaged with the market if we really want to make favorable changes for people. So one thing is that for Indian NGOs, we need to understand that we have a long history of NGOs, and we have probably the largest number of NGOs in the world in a particular country. But at the same time, in most of the cases, what happens is that we have a very traditional set of skills and value and capacity, and the new scenario demands a different kind of capacity so that we can engage with the market and influence the market proactively so that we can create the favorable equation what we are talking about. From that perspective, again, I'm reiterating that we need to have a very clear macro level perspective of this change and try to understand as a sector how do we position ourselves, and as a particular NGO or a civil society organization, what strategy we should take and what kind of capacity we should build up to really interact with this and proactively engage with this kind of market scenario. Definitely, I think all of us, as we are all have agreed to have this discussion today, we understood and we have accepted that we cannot really ignore these changes, whatever we accepted, like it or dislike it, but we have a particular role and a changed responsibility to engage with this kind of market scenario. Now, if we get into the prescriptive formats of civil society for corporate social responsibility, and different, try to look at the different perspectives of corporate social responsibilities and try to understand what is the trend of corporate social responsibility. Now, if we look at these definitions, it is saying the first definition is saying that a concept whereby companies integrate social and environmental concerns in their business operations and in their interaction with their stakeholders on a voluntary basis. Now, the key word, the most important key word in this is a voluntary basis. But in India, we see that actually India government has mandated it is no more voluntary. So the businesses will have to do that. Second thing is that it is saying about integrating social and environmental concerns in their business. In Indian scenario, I don't say that the mandate is, the new legislation is talking about integration, but they are talking about disintegration. They are talking about us, business should be separated from corporate social responsibility. So whatever you are doing for business, or if you try to integrate anything, social and environmental, that will not be construed as corporate social responsibility. So it is disconnected. So these are the interesting, developments, what is happening in our country and globally. So we need to understand as a civil society organization, we need to understand and try to see that, and also to develop our opinion about that, whether we want the business to do good business and integrate social and environmental aspects in concerns in that, or we want them to actually spend an amount of their profit in disconnected social responsibility activities. Now the question is whether it is about the way they earn money or make profit or the way they spend money. To me, first of all, one business, just think of a business who is actually probably not doing so fair business. The way they are earning money is not so good for the society. If they spend money for something good for the society, does it really neutralize the harm they create in the course of earning money or earning profit? I mean, these are the questions we need to answer. We need to have some opinion about that. The second question is that CSR is a private sector contribution. CSR is a private sector contribution to sustainable development. Now, this is also again saying that CSR is the private sector contribution to the sustainable development. So it is talking about a sustainable development, so that what we are saying is that in terms of environmental sustainability, in terms of inclusive growth, market sustainability, the private sector should be responsible and contribute towards that. Now, as I said that, the dichotomy again, this is whether, when we have, we try to develop an understanding about corporate social responsibility. I mean, one good way that what we can do is that we can go through the definitions, we can go through the all prescribed formats and we follow that. Second thing is that independently we look at that and try to see critically and analytically and try to develop our own opinion in a particular context of Indian scenario. Now, again, the contradiction between doing good business and doing good social work. Somebody, say a company who is probably creating a lot of environmental pollution, or a company which is actually not doing a fair business in their business process itself, operational process itself, but they are doing a very beautiful good work in collaboration with some of you, in having good primary education or healthcare or something like that. Does that justify that or establish that the business is socially responsible? Those are the questions I wanted to raise. And first of all, the question between how do we earn money and how do we spend money, that dichotomy. The dichotomy between the legitimacy and the efficiency question. The dichotomy between mandatory CSR and voluntary CSR. The dichotomy between disconnected CSR and integrated CSR, corporate social responsibility. The dichotomy between the broader responsibility of businesses, social and environmental responsibility, and the core responsibility of businesses in terms of making profit, generating income and employment. Now, to me, actually generating profit, income and employment is also a social responsibility, because unless and until one business is generating employment and income, they're socially irrelevant, or even they are not producing right kind of goods and materials or providing you right kind of services, I don't think they are socially responsible. So those are the contradictions and dichotomies are still there in the discourse of corporate social responsibility. Now, if you look at the global scenario, the way it is emerging, whether it is a political phenomena or it's an instrumental phenomena or normative phenomena, globally we are talking about corporate social responsibility as an integrated approach in the business itself, business operation itself. So the way you do business, you do in a more socially responsible manner. In India, we have actually taken a little, deviating step. What we are talking about, that the businesses would do business, but they will have to spend 2%, a certain category of the corporates, they will have to spend 2% of their profit to do some corporate social responsibility work in partnership with definitely, many NGOs. Now, I mean, it's again, narrowly if you look at that, it's a good opportunity for the NGOs, because there will be a lot of money available now, and especially in the scenario when the international funding agencies are actually not providing so much of fund as they used to provide in previous days. So that this is a welcome scenario for the NGOs in terms of fund availability. But on the other hand, we need to understand that as corporate, as civil society organization, we'll have to have an independent view and try to understand that what happens with that business which is probably not fair or exploitative. Yeah. So these are the questions probably we need to get involved with. I mean, we'll need to reflect on and try to see and make our position clear. Now, let us get into the discourse what's happening globally and in Indian scenario. So, if we see the purpose of corporate social responsibility, as I have a little bit of discussed earlier, that there should be some motive why corporate are doing so. So one was that definitely we see that it is not a new phenomenon if we talk about corporate philanthropy. In India also, we know that many of the companies, they have been spending a lot of money for social goods. Many organizations, business organizations, have been spending money to do temples and other things for religious purpose, for social purposes. So in that, we'll call it CSR as corporate philanthropy. So that's that has a long history, and that phenomena probably was there and will have, because as an individual, philanthropy, whether we like it or not, was there in the history and would remain as an instinct of humanitarian instinct of social being. So that philanthropy was there and would remain. The second part, as we discussed, that risk mitigation and the compliance, so that while operating, corporate understand that there is certain amount of risk in the society. For example, if you are doing a land acquisition, there would be reactions from the community, there would be a little bit of destabilization around the particular site, so that we'll have to do something to pacify that particular conflict, or sometimes we'll have to be compliant with the law of the land, so that we can actually run our business smoothly. Now, definitely, that's a risk mitigation approach, and that definitely does not actually give you a broader responsibility, give you a perspective of broader responsibility of business. Now, the third thing, what we are now discussing about, is that CSR as value creation. Now, in this, what we are arguing is that business is not only to make profit, it's not only to make money for the investors. So the ultimate aim of a business to create a value. Now, if we look at some of the businesses, the new generation businesses like Google, like Facebook, they are creating a new value for human society. So those are the need they are they're trying to offer. They're trying to solution to some of the problems and the needs to the human society. If you look at another example, that probably if you look at if you see the example of iodized salt. Now, this is a great need for the society, a health need, and in certain manner where actually can meet the need. They are providing a business solution to some of the social problems or human problems. So that is the kind of value creation. In the process, they are making some profit. So the ultimate goal of this particular phenomena is not to generate profit, ultimately to generate value, to offer value, but to create that value, they generate income. Now, there are some other aspects actually that, there are some new views about corporate social responsibilities. People are saying that the businesses should actually survive to create an enabling environment for sustainable development itself. I find it little difficult to understand because a business has a very specific role to play, whether it is producing it is giving you a product or giving you a service. So through that product and service, probably we can see that value creation. But a business is surviving entirely for creating sustainable development. That is something probably it is more of a normative, more of a moralistic view, idealistic view than an operational view. So what we see that there's an evolution of the theories of corporate social responsibilities and the practices in corporate social responsibilities. The way it is being justified, it used to be historically and still there. I mean, a lot of examples are there as philanthropic CSR. There are a lot of examples still there, and it will remain definitely as CSR as a risk management. And the new phenomena, what we are trying to understand, the new generation business or the future business, tomorrow's business, would come as the business to create value, not to create profit only. I mean, profit is something in the process they will earn, and even to survive as a business they will have to earn profit. But the primary objective is to create profit, create value. Now, in that scenario, what we are trying to see again, I will remind you that there is a difference between the positioning what we have taken on CSR, especially I'm talking about the positioning of Government of India about corporate social responsibility, because what they are saying is that you just separate your corporate social responsibilities from your core business. You take 2% of your profit out of your kitty and make a separate kitty for corporate social responsibility, and anything what is relevant for business will not be construed as corporate social responsibility. That is one school. I mean, especially in India, we can see. Probably that is a traditional school. But globally, what is being, the global discourse is saying that a particular business has certain responsibility in terms of economic responsibility, in terms of social responsibility, and in terms of environmental responsibility. It is not about spending money. It is about more how do you earn money, how do you do your business. Now, if you look at the economic responsibilities, we are talking about investing in infrastructure, so that infrastructure is essential for sustainable development. Combating bribery and corruption. Corporate governance takes very significant space in the discourse of corporate social responsibility. So we definitely need to understand that corporate social responsibility is not, again, what we are doing outside the organization for the community and for the society or whatsoever, but it is also how do we govern ourselves. If a business is actually doing unfair business and they practice a lot of unfair things like bribery, corruption and all, whether we will call them socially responsible business or not. Paying tax responsibility, driving innovations, generating sales and profits, contributing to local economy, so that what kind of employment, what kind of other peripheral economic benefits we are creating, that we need to see as the economic responsibility of corporate. Now, the social responsibility is not only, social responsibility does not mean only responsibility toward the community, the outside, the external community, but also it talks about good working conditions. It talks about complying with the law, good complying with the law in terms of the social laws, in terms of the social legislations, and in terms of the labor legislations. Good community relationship is one of the aspects. Respecting human rights, ensuring product safety, and treating suppliers fairly. So that is also social responsibility. Like, there were many arguments, there were many controversies about many Western companies that, in their country, they are practicing a different kind of labor practice. They are having a different kind of labor practice, labor conditions. But when in the supply chain, the manufacturers are in India, countries like India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, they practice a very different set of norms. So, those are the things we'll have to see, that it is not only that particular company, but in the entire value chain or the supply chain. Then, if you look at the environmental responsibilities, then definitely we will talk about the minimizing waste and emissions, minimizing use of hazardous substances, using energy and resource efficiency, using environmentally sound materials and energy, protecting biodiversity. So this is actually the global discourse on corporate social responsibility. When we are talking about corporate social responsibility, rather we talk about business responsibility, and corporate social responsibility gradually is getting an obsolete term globally. In terms of business responsibility, we say that business, the way they operate, they should be responsible socially, economically, and environmentally. And by doing business, they offer a meaningful value to the society. That is what socially responsible business is. Now, whether in India we had this kind of discourse, yes. If you remember, in 2009 we had the National Voluntary Guideline. and Ministry of Corporate Affairs actually had engaged people, some of the people like me, and we had developed this national voluntary guideline where we talked about business responsibility more than corporate social responsibility. Now in NVG, the way we have explained business responsibility is responsible business instead of corporate social responsibility, as the term responsible business encompasses the limited scope and understanding of the term CSR. Now following that, SEBI, the Security Exchange Board of India, they had also mandated on the line of the NVG principles. There are few principles what we had explained in we had prescribed in national voluntary guideline, and remarkably this is a voluntary guideline, this is not mandated. So we said that ideally it should be practiced by the company, but it is not mandated. It was more suggestive than prescriptive. Now SEBI mandated on the line of national voluntary guideline that all the companies, whatever they're doing, they mandated not that what they need to do, but they mandated that you need to disclose that what you are doing on the line of those principles of national voluntary guideline. So that there was a time, I would say, that when we had taken a very, very strong step toward that business responsibility, dimension, but again, with the new Companies Act, we actually got back to the traditional corporate social responsibility regime. Now, in the national voluntary guideline, the principles we are talking about, if you look at that, it is a very comprehensive set of principles. It is talking about not only, it is talking about all about how do you do your business. If you look at those small balloons again around business responsibilities, it is talking about ethics, transparency, accountability, product life cycle sustainability, so that it is not just producing product and the way you produced it in a responsible manner, but the entire the life cycle, you should be responsible for the entire life cycle of that product. For example, the plastic goods, for example, the batteries they create. It is not that in our plant we have created all kind of good conditions for production, but at the same time, what happens to the battery till the last state and how it is being disposed, even whether we have a recycling process also in place or not. Employee well-being, stakeholder engagement, human right, environment, policy advocacy, inclusive growth, customer care, and value. So these are the principles what actually constitute business responsibility. Now, if you look at the Companies Act perspective, this is little, I would say, in contrast. We will have to see this. They are talking about eradicating extreme hunger and poverty, promotion of education. These are the list of activities what they are giving, which is not relevant for the business, and also what they are talking is that this money has to be separated out from their profit, and they will have to spend on these kind of things, activities. They are saying that promoting gender equality, empowering women, reducing child mortality and improving maternal health, combating HIV/AIDS, malaria and other diseases, ensuring environmental sustainability, employment, enhancing vocational skills, social business projects, contribution to the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund. This is the easiest way they have created that, if some company doesn't want to do anything and they spend the whole money, they contribute the whole money to the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund, that would be construed that would be considered as corporate social responsibility, and such other matters as may be prescribed. Now, it looks like more of a mandate for NGOs than a business. So now we need to understand that, is there any, so what as a business, what kind of value they want to create? And definitely they are talking about in partnership with NGOs to implement all of these programs. Now, as an NGO sector, definitely the good news is that this will strengthen definitely our work in these different areas of activities. And on the other side, we see that definitely there would be a lot of corporate support, not only with money, but definitely we'll have to see that the businesses have a different set of values, different set of techniques and skills. What we'll have to learn from them. Then so till now what we have discussed is that one broader perspective of corporate social responsibility. We see that there are a lot of as it is still emerging and it is in a very formative stage, the whole theory of corporate social responsibility or business responsibility, whatever the name you like to call it, uh, definitely we'll have to see it more critically and analytically, and we see that there are a lot of contradictions and dichotomy between the legitimacy aspect and the efficiency aspect, between whether it is through the process or whether it is only how do you spend money, what happens bad corporate which is actually harmful for the making a product which is not so good for human being or the society, but they still spend a lot of money to do something, some education program or health program or something which is dealing to the company, whether we'll call it socially responsible business or not. We see the bigger question, the political question as a business sector, the way it is being emerging. The market is actually being the primary force for development. It is not only the market development, it is about the social development and social changes. Is that something, what would be the consequence of that, and how do we really influence that to create a kind of favorable situation? And also we see that the contradiction between the global perspective of corporate social responsibility as it is an integrated perspective in the business operation, and we see that what kind of the recent developments we have experienced in Indian scenario in terms of the new legislation which is being effective from 1st of April this year. So with that background, we'll see that we'll quickly go through some of the international standards and norms. I fear that actually we will not have much scope to get into detail of these international standards and norms, but at least we should be familiar with international standards and norms. And what I'll do is that in this PowerPoint presentation, in fact, there is little bit of detail of this, so I'll leave it with you. But let us see that what are those international standards and norms we have. Now, by international accountability standards, what I see is that corporate responsibility has witnessed emergence of numerous initiatives aimed at standardizing firms' behavior with regard to social and environmental issues. Now, definitely, when we talk about business responsibility, there should be some reference to some standard that how do we call it a responsible business and why we should not call it a responsible business. There should be some standards and norms. And as a global market, there would be actually, there's another question is that whether it should be contextualized in accordance with the local context or it should be the global context. Most of the things are actually global as it is emerging. There are political questions because there are environmental norms. If the third world countries try to comply with those environmental norms, probably the growth will be slowed down because the developed countries have already gone through that phase, and at this point of time it might be easier for them to talk about those norms in terms of environmental and social responsibility. So there are political dynamics on this too. And these international accountability standards, they are all about encourage and guide corporate responsibility, provide ways to assess, measure, and communicate organizations' social and environmental performances. Now, there are 4 types of international accountability standards. One is that principle-based. Sorry, there is a spelling mistake. The principle should be PLE. So the principle-based, international accountability standards are talking about broadly defined principles which regards to social and environmental problems used as a guideline for acting and starting point for dialogue. Now, the second thing is actually prescribing the process-based. It focuses on the question of how corporate accountability can be achieved. So it is saying that how it can be achieved. It is not talking about how it should be. I mean, with reference to how it should be, it is talking more about how it should be. It offers essential managerial guidance on how corporate accountability can be achieved. The third set of international accountability standards are certification based, so that there is a standard norms and standards. Against that, you will be certified, like in through a verification process, through a validation process. The fourth is reporting standard based. Like we have a few reporting standard based. We'll give you some examples. International accountability standards, who are actually giving you the guideline to disclose your business responsibility activities and try to say that we know whether you are a responsible business or not. Now, the principle based, some of the example of principle based, about UN Global Compact, OECD guideline, CERES. These are the principles they are saying. So they are not saying that this is what should be compared with and all. This is a kind of global guideline and principles about a responsible business. Now, certification based, these are actually used to certify a company to endorse that whether these companies are being socially responsible or not. We see that Social Accountability 8000, ISO 14001, then the process-based A1000, ISO 26000. These are the process-based. Again, ISO 26000. Sometimes people think this is actually a certification tool, but this is not a certification tool. It is more of a guidance tool for the process. So it is giving you a guidance that how the business should be operated to be responsible. Now AA 1000 and SA 8000, they are also linked. Actually, it's almost SA 1000 is giving you the process, and SA 8000 actually referring a lot of these processes to do a certification for that business process. Now, reporting based standards, we see that GRI, that is the most popular set of guidelines, Global Reporting Initiative Guidelines. BBS Forge Standard, CERES Facility Reporting Project. This is actually a facility reporting project than the process reporting. Greenhouse Gas Protocol for the project accounting. Now, as I said that, if we go in depth discussion on all of this, it will actually take a lot of time, and today probably we don't have much scope to discuss all of this. So what I'll do is that there is a little bit of description in this particular PowerPoint. So when we will be posting this PowerPoint presentation on my CII in website and also CSO Partners website, so that as and when it is required, you can definitely refer to that. And also, if you have any question, any queries, and you need any kind of guidance on this, you may always get back to me. I can do it offline. Now, as I said, I'm skipping all this for now because we really want to concentrate on the NGO's role in business responsibility. So, these are the two main things I thought that would be really very, very important for us to at least initiate some thought process. One is that how do you justify the new change? How do you critically view the new change of a different equation and a different kind of market force is getting into the place? And second thing is that what should be the NGO's role in that particular scenario? Now, if you look at the history, actually in 1990s, we see a lot of civil society organizations are being actively engaged with corporates, businesses, and the market we see that most of these in 1990s, most of these reactions were actually more confrontational, more activism than collaborative. Now, if you look at that International Baby Food Action Network, this is actually 1990s. These are things, this is a network what they started talking about, that artificial baby food products were produced by different international companies, especially Nestle, and they challenge them that the way they are actually marketing it might not be good for the society. it cannot be a substitute of breast milk. So that there was a huge movement by this Baby Food Action Network, and there was a lot of visible changes in Nestle's business practices. So a boycott was launched, by this for this particular issue in United States in 1977 against Swiss-based Nestle Corporation. In 1979, the International Nestle Boycott Committee was formed. In the meantime, internationally, there was increased demand for code and of regulate the market of infant formula. I mean, these are the things were happening simultaneously. Then they formed one network called IBFAN. That 5 participating consumer groups, actually 5 different organizations, they participated in this network. They launched this international network in 1979, and the recommendation of WHO UNICEF meeting in 1979 led to the preparation of a draft code of marketing of formula food. This resulted into the introduction of International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes in 1981. And definitely the civil society organizations and NGOs played a very, very significant role in this. Now with this, again, we see that there are different very significant movements in terms of the NGOs reactions, NGOs participation in the market economy. We see that with Shell, that oil company, there are different confrontations, different kind of controversies. One controversy was in Principa, another was in Nigeria with an indigenous group of people with tribes called Ogoni. So again, because we see that because of civil society organization movements and other things, Shell actually taken a lot of they made a lot of changes in their business strategies to comply with some of the social norms as demanded by the civil society organizations. We see that this is a popular thing against Nike over child labor. In Indonesian factories of Nike, there were reported bad labor conditions, child labor across the globe, and all these things. So that there was a huge consumer movement against Nike. Again, many people boycotted in Italy and other countries. Actually, people boycotted Nike shoes, and their profit level dropped significantly. So that there is another organization called Gap. So they started working with Nike, and Nike actually after that they created a very favorable condition. They actually adopted a set of norms and strategies to look into this matter. And we see that there's a lot of change again. I mean, these are some examples. A lot of as impacted by the civil society organizations. Now, the other some examples, if you see that Marine Stewardship Council, this is again one council, one group of people, one group of organizations. They started influencing the companies who are producing seafood products, and they were also fishing. So they influence these companies to adopt a set of standard and norms for the sustainable fishing and seafood products. Now, and even they can display the blue MS6 eco level on only if that seafood can be traced back through the supply chain to a fishery that has been certified against MS6 standard. So this is another very significant movement by civil society organization. It is not only about movement. GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, by itself is a civil society organization. They were launched in 1997. They started talking about how do you disclose, how the businesses will disclose about their sustainability efforts. So they started developing the norms, and especially the GRI has a stakeholder council at an international level. And the stakeholder council members, it's a very consultative process. The stakeholder council, and there are representatives from corporate, their business federations, different reporting agencies, and also there is a significant the union, labor unions, and significant representation from the civil society organization. Coincidentally, I am also a representative in the GRI Stakeholder Council. Now, OECD, which is actually what they started, talking about the norms about transnational organizations, the businesses. They, very interestingly, they started in consultation process with the civil society organizations. This I think started happening in 1990s. All EU's multi-stakeholder forum in 2002, 2004 on CSR. They also involved a lot of civil society organizations in the discourse of corporate social responsibility. So we see that in 1990s and in 2000 there are a lot of discourses and lot of initiatives. Initially it was little bit of reactionary, it was little bit of activism, but gradually the NGOs are taking different roles. NGOs are actually taking initiative to set the norms so that they are becoming normative. They are setting the norms for the businesses. It is not only they are reacting to or being activists against the businesses. Some of the not so fair practices by businesses, not definitely against businesses, but some of the unfair practices of businesses. But at the same time, they also took a very significant role in influencing the policies, developing the code of conduct of businesses. Different business federations and normative federations, they also actually started engaging civil society organizations. The EU multi-stakeholder, as I said, that in European Union, they also engaged, and this is a kind of legitimate, I would say that civil society organization created a legitimate space in the discourse of civil society, of corporate social responsibility or business responsibility. Now, one very, very significant instance, I mean this is something really game-changing example. In May 2008, Intermon Oxfam, the Spanish NGO confederated to Oxfam International, gained the support of the owners of 82,000 shares and the investment fund Boston Common Assets to speak at Repsol YPF, Spain's largest oil company, annual shareholders meeting. Intermon's Oxfam condemned Repsol's action in reaction to indigenous community, mainly in Bolivia and Peru. Now, this is a very significant milestone, because I would say, because this is the first time one NGO participated in a board meeting of a particular company, and try to influence the company's policy, business policy. So this is not from outside, this is not by creating norms, but they are participating actively in the business governance and try to influence their policies. So this is a very, very significant role. So we saw that there are activisms by NGOs, there are roles of defining the norms and code of conduct for the businesses. There are NGOs who have actively participated in defining some of the global standards and influencing some of the global policies in regard to business responsibility. And also there are instances where actually businesses actively engaged in corporate governance itself to influence their policies and strategies. Now, with that, today what we see that definitely one aspect definitely, I mean, there's an obvious aspect that we are also collaborating with many corporates in terms of implementing partners. We are taking fund from the businesses and partnering with them, and collaboratively we are implementing some corporate social responsibilities. Now, if you look at all these roles, as I said that the initial role was reactionary, it was activist, and I'm not saying that today it is not required, but I think it should be a balance. Activism and collaboration should be balanced. We see that implementation role by the NGOs, so that in many cases the businesses as outreach partner, as community partner, they collaborate with NGOs to implement the corporate social responsibility program. We see many many NGOs act as resource agencies for their training, capacity building, to do research for them, to do evaluation studies for them. One of the organization, definitely CSO Partners, we do play a lot of role as resource agency. Market enabler. Now many NGOs, they work in the market. Like, if you take example of many NGOs who are actually working in the marketing chain of different corporate organizations, and they are actually enabling the market for the corporates, for the businesses. So we see that it is actually the some of the civil society organization, they're proactively participating in the business market itself. It is not a separate social responsibility or activism or resource agency or anything else, but they are now in for many businesses, they are also a part of the marketing network. Policy influential, definitely, many organizations, they work with the national and international bodies, the government, to influence the corporate governance policy, and also, policies regarding specifically more of corporate social responsibility. Norm setter, as I said, that, organizations like GRI and all, they try to set the norms for the organization, that, how do you disclose, what should be the standard and procedures, and what should be the norms for in regard to business responsibility. Franchisee, as we say that, many organizations, like say many MFIs, microfinance institutes, they are almost work like a franchisee of the financial institutions. So it is a different kind of role. Definitely, traditionally in India or anywhere in the world, this particular role was not there. Now this is a new role. I would say that in last 2 decades probably has emerged in the market. So the organizations are also, the civil society organizations are also becoming the vehicle of financial access. Definitely many organizations, as I said, that, even CSO Partners is working with many corporate as advisors. So, to advise them on business responsibility practices, their strategies, their principles, and also to see that, what kind of partnership they get into and what kind of program they should implement. And definitely consumers' voice. In India, definitely we don't see much of this, but internationally, and we need to see that, that is what the new role of civil society organizations should also include, that the consumer movements. We need to see that how we can actually sensitize the consumers about their rights and privileges, and how we make it a more sensitized market, so that it is not the civil society organization, it is not the government or anybody else, but market will determine the business performances, and they will actually influence the business performances. As we saw in case of Nike and other cases, that actually consumers have a very, very important role to influence the behavior of businesses. So civil society organizations, as representative of people, probably sensitize the consumers and try to see that what kind of consumers' choice they will generate. Now, with that, I would actually get into some of the case studies, but before that, I would say that it is almost 12:30, so we have half an hour more. I will say that if there's any question in that. So, briefly what we discussed till now, we tried to see at a macro level to have an analytical view on the phenomena of corporate social responsibility, and try to see that what kind of new equation is emerging between civil society organization, business, and the government, and especially in the developmental discourse, what kind of role the business sector is going to play, and whether we have a definite opinion about that and definite positioning as a civil society organization about that. We just touched based on, okay, we also discussed about the global the global metrics on on corporate social responsibilities. We try to see that the difference between the business responsibility and corporate social responsibility phenomena, and we wanted to, we saw that, globally where we actually the whole movement is going toward business responsibility and all about how do we operate business. In Indian scenario, unfortunately, the new legislation actually talking about a disconnected, separated social responsibility, and it might be a license to operate in an unfair manner, and it could be used so that, those kind of dichotomies we discussed. We just touched base on some of the international accountability standards, and we discussed about the role of NGOs and civil society organizations as it emerged in 1990s, and actually from long back it has emerged, but in 1990 we see an upsurge of this kind of movements, and there are changed behavior of business, reaction to the businesses toward that, and gradually we saw that actually the civil society organizations and NGOs, they have taken a very diverse role in terms of, and they have become a very important, significant player in the market economy in regard to civil society, as in regard to corporate social responsibility, and they have taken a diverse role, sometimes as advisors, sometimes as the activists, sometimes even the market franchises. So with that, we will get into some of the case examples of NGO campaigns and NGO collaboration. So before that, if you have any question, let me look at that. So want to know about CSR? Somebody is asking, Mrs. Annapurani. Want to know about CSR and how it can be linked with NGOs perspective. I think we have discussed a little bit about that. So I see a question of Ms. Sutapa Biswas. Do all companies, however small, have to do CSR? No, it is not all companies. I mean, with reference to the New Companies Act, definitely not all companies are mandated. It's certain categories of companies. We'll have a detailed discussion on this on the second session when we'll talk about that act particularly. But broadly, it is not all companies. But if you say that whether all the companies should be responsible socially, I would say that all the companies should be responsible socially, but they are not mandated by our new act. Can a company making cigarette do CSR in a no smoking campaign? This is a very interesting question. I mean, this is what the dichotomy I was talking about. So a company who is making cigarettes and doing a no smoking campaign, do you see that this is a legitimate corporate social responsibility for them? I would say that definitely not. If it is it a responsible business by itself or not? That we need to question. Tomorrow some company who is making arms and ammunition and they go for peace building, would you actually believe in them? The first of all, they should look at their business, what they are producing. Yep. So another person is saying that, going back to Peter Drucker, do the corporates really spend money for CSR? Many of these corporates have their own NGOs and are spending money in the name of CSR. I don't see any harm in that if they have their own money. sorry, if they have their own NGOs or own foundation, I mean, they definitely will not have to necessarily partner with the NGOs. And finally, what she's saying, continued saying, is that finally it is helping their own business. Corporates even make advertisements of their own company with a small social message, which is ultimately helping in their own branding. Uh, well, I mean, that's a big question that, what is corporate social responsibility and what is not a corporate social responsibility. I mean, there are many questions in this particular question. The first question is that whether it has to be only in partnership with NGOs. Definitely, I don't believe it is has to be only in in partnership with NGOs, because if you take the broader definition of business responsibility, they have to have a good corporate governance. They will have to have a good product. They will have to have that stewardship of product. There are many aspects of that, and if they have their own foundation to implement the social aspects, the community relationship activities, I don't see there is any harm to do that. Corporate, and in advertisement of their own company, they have social messages and other things. I would say that, okay, I mean, let's consider it as an advertisement. Why it should be separate corporate social responsibility thing. But one thing is that even the advertisements, in all aspects, we'll have to see that nowadays we see a lot of advertisement which are not socially responsible. If you see the messages and the value behind those advertisements, the message they communicate, it is not socially responsible in many cases. So we need to see that it is not, if they do a very good work in partnership with an NGO in a village, but having a really irresponsible advertisement, again, would you really call them as a social responsible business or not? Another question comes from the same person, Ms. Sutapa Viswas. She is asking, what could be the best strategy to approach the corporates? We'll actually discuss all these aspects about partnership and how do you want to approach corporates in probably our third session when we are talking about partnership. Will you share this presentation with the participants? Yeah, actually these participants will be posted on CII's website and as well as CSO Partners website, so that you can refer this. Working for cancer prevention application in the perspective, or is working for cancer prevention applicable in the perspective? I didn't understand. Sorry, I didn't understand the question. If it is a question or just a remark, a comment. Sir, I'm working for electrical company. Kindly let me know how to enter into CSR activity. Well, we have just completed one series of webinar for corporates. In that, actually, we had few sessions would have been really helpful for you. But if you need any suggestion, any kind of help offline, at end of this session, I will provide my email ID. I'll share it with all of you so that you can ask me these questions, and probably we can take it on offline. CAA is another accountability standard for the corporates. As I said, the details would be there in the slides. Today I'm not getting into that in details. So you might please refer to that. This question was from Mrityunjay Bhattacharya. Where from can I download this presentation? I have already told you that. I would like to know about the new changes coming in 2014, not the historical data. Please focus on this aspect. Mr. Amit Varma, see, you need to understand first of all that how it is emerging. The whole scenario is emerging. If you are referring to 2004, because the new act is being applicable in 2004, it is already applicable since 1st of April. Then definitely you attend the second session. We will actually have a focused discussion on this in the second session on, I think, 16th of April. So Ms. Radhika Ramurthy is asking, very informative, Mr. Ghosh, just a question. Why is it that government has mandated specific sectors for CSR intervention? Oh no, I think it has more question, but I just missed that question. Ms. Deepakshi Mehandru, she is asking, why is it that government has mandated specific sectors for CSR interventions? So, the government had to, because as you are making it mandatory, now, you can actually say that you will have to invest 2% of your money. Now, 2% of your money for what? They need to say something. I totally don't agree on that particular list of activities, but definitely when you are prescribing somebody to spend money on something, you will have to say for what. So they have tried this. That was an attempt to say for what they should spend money. As I said that, we have a lot of question about the list, but a list has to be done if you prescribe somebody to spend money. Mukesh from IGSSS, thank you so much for your detailed overview on CSR. It was really insightful. My question is, do you really think that corporates in India, barring a few, are seriously looking at CSR as a social investment than just mere formality? Now, it's difficult for me to answer. It depends on case-to-case basis. Yeah, few organizations, definitely they are serious about the social responsibility. And for few organizations, as it remains, I mean, when you make it a mandatory, when you make it a matter of compliance, definitely many organizations, many business organizations will take it as a compliance aspect, and they will actually do their formalities as they do many other things to, take the checklist of compliance. So, I mean, that is the flip side of making it mandatory. Going back to Peter Drucker, do the corporation really spend money for CSR? Many of these corporations have their own NGOs. I think I have already addressed these questions. It is coming back again. Why can't the government let corporates be free to decide what sector they want to make an impact in? See, as I said that, if they ask you to spend money, if they mandate it, that you will have to spend 2% money, they will have to mandate it. Otherwise, tomorrow, the fear is that, somebody will actually contribute to a political party. And to me, this is a CSR, corporate social responsibility. Or if I actually construct a temple or do something else, which is probably will not agree that as CSR, if you don't define what are the things you should do, then people might actually spend the 2% for anything. But at the same time, first of all, I have question about mandating CSR and mandating the 2% amount. And second thing is that there is a lot of question about the list of activities. There should be a list if you mandate, but definitely that list of activities is definitely at this point of time, as it looks like, is not very convincing. Do all companies, however small, I think the questions are repeating. The CSR rules and the laws set up Indian government. Is there any law of NGOs with prescriptive to CSR? Definitely corporate CSR. See, the CSR, this section 135 of the New Companies Act, 2013, is talking about corporate social responsibility. It is mandating corporate social responsibilities for Indian companies, certain categories of Indian companies, but there is no specific law for NGOs in corporate social responsibilities. That particular law, that under the Companies Act, section 135, they are saying, they're suggesting, they're not saying it is necessary, they're suggesting that all these outreach work and programs should be implemented in partnership with NGOs of certain categories who will qualify to certain qualifications. Could you share some specific on the new guidelines in the Companies Act? I would definitely have a detailed discussion on 16th on the new Companies Act. Hi sir, I am Bhagia working in Greenpeace. Kindly let me know how we as a company can have tie-up with NGOs to promote business and do CSR. I mean, again, it is we need a lot of discussion to understand what your question is and what is your need, and to guide you and to suggest you. So, as I said that I will share my contact details in the end of this presentation. So you may please contact me. We can have a discussion off track. Is there any geographical limitations to work? There is no geographical limitations. It is suggested that the priority should be given in and around the production site. So it is especially for the manufacturing companies that in and around that. But otherwise, there is no specification. The priority will have to be given. You can do CSR anywhere else. What is the formal way in which corporate engage under new act? Dr. R. Sujatha. Again, I mean, this new act I will be explaining, I will be discussing in details on 16th of this month. So I would request you to attend that so that we can have a proper discussion on this. Do they need to work nearby factory? NGOs working for women released cancer prevention awareness and screening can apply for CSR project or not? Definitely you can apply for CSR projects. There is no problem in that. But would like to know how corporates can work in a better way toward our business responsibility. I mean, it's a $1 million question. See, first of all, it is mandated now. So they will have to, for at least for compliance, they will have to do something or not. And see, what, you will probably agree with me that market, end of the day, the market will determine. So tomorrow, the customers, the consumers, the civil society organizations, they are all looking at this organization. The New Companies Act is saying that you will have to disclose whatever you are doing and how you are spending your money, so that tomorrow all these reports will be available in the public domain, and you can look at that, and definitely the market can react to that and see that, in name of CSR, whether they are satisfied about the performance of that particular company or not. What do you mean by corporate governance? Is business responsibility synonymous with CSR, or it is something broader that includes environmental and ethical aspects, or BR refers basically to the responsibility toward the shareholders with a social tag to it? Now, definitely business responsibility is definitely not only to be responsible for the shareholders. Business responsibility is being a responsible business in terms of socially, economically, and environmentally. And definitely it is much broader definition than corporate social responsibility. I mean, if you look at the way we use the corporate social responsibility, sometimes it is external to the business. You do something more than business. You do some work in the society, in the community. But business responsibility means that you will have to have a fair business practice in terms of governance, in terms of its operation, in terms of its products and services. At the same time, you need to be responsible for the society, environment, the environment and the broader economy. So I would say that, yeah, it is a much broader term, a broader perspective than corporate social responsibility. Is there any new rules for supporting in children education for the corporates? I have already given you the list of the activities what the government of India has prescribed, that any corporate who is falling into that particular category, who has to spend 2% of their money in corporate social responsibility, they will have to follow that. Yeah, and definitely for children and education, there are activities, prescribed activities. When CSR is done through an NGO, they can get ATG tax benefit. Doesn't it make sense to route CSR fund through NGOs? Yeah, I mean, see, you can justify whether it is through NGOs. Even the foundations, they are also NGOs. The corporate foundation, they will also have the tax exemptions and all. So that, if it is through NGOs or through foundation, it does not make any difference for them. And I believe that the more important aspect why they should partner with NGO is because NGO's expertise and their experience, they are very, very proximate to the company, to the community, and they represent people's aspirations and expectations. That is why more the corporate should partner with the NGOs, not only for tax exemption, not for tax benefit. I think that is the real value what NGOs can give. Even no foundation, no corporate, no other agency can give, and that is what actually NGOs as NGO sector we should offer to the corporate sector, because we are expert. I mean, NGOs should be the expert for the community aspect and social aspect. So that is the value we should offer to them, not exactly the tax exemption. Activity meant exclusively for employees and their families will be treated as CSR. Again, I mean, these are the questions regarding CSR Act. It is not. According to this Act, it is not considered as CSR activity. I'll take only few more questions. Can CII work as a platform for this noble work? Ms. Deepali Deshmukh. CSO partners and CII, we have CII South Zone, South Region, we have created a platform to facilitate the NGOs, to connect the NGOs and the corporate already. So, I mean, this particular even webinar is part of that particular effort. So definitely CII kind of business federation will have a very significant role to play, and CII is already, has started working on that. Will you be able to download? I have answered. Is there a norm where NGOs can intervene in a corporate in misusing the funds meant for a CSR initiative? And now definitely these are all in the, so they will have to publish their report, annual report for CSR in the public domain. So definitely you can challenge any corporate, any civil society organization can challenge any corporate. And as a consumer, as a market player, definitely, you can question any corporate about there is, if there is any kind of, issues on their corporate CSR initiative. Are there any CSR courses that the staffs and students with social work background can take up? Well, I mean, there are many courses in abroad. In India, recently, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, they are launching a series of courses on CSR. I think, if you go to the MCA website, Ministry of Corporate Affairs website, you can actually get the update about that. So, if you talk about a structured, formatted, long-term course, probably you should actually go to Ministry of Corporate Affairs and look into that. The history and the scope was relevant and interesting, and most NGOs would be more interested in how to collaborate positively and mutual benefit approach, follow-up, etc. But I think listed questions, sir. Yeah, definitely. The question was that, yeah. So yeah, I mean, the question is that how do we engage? So that is why I said that, first of all, we need to understand, we need to have our own opinion, our own understanding, our own perspective about the whole change. How we'll have to have our own standing and positioning about the whole scenario as an organization. Then only we can see that how do we really partner in that, and how do you act in that particular, engage with this kind of market scenario. So we'll have a very specific discussion on this partnering with corporate on CSR in this series, I think in the third session. So, if you are interested, you are most welcome to attend the third session, so we can discuss about more specifically on partnering with corporate as a civil society organization. Listed activities are MDG, Millennium Development Goals. Yeah, actually the first list, now it is a little bit of change, the new list, but it was based on the MDG. What are the qualifications for the CSOs to apply for CSR from corporates? Again, I mean, this is a question we will be discussing in the second session. Any civil society organization who will have 3 years of experience, they can apply for or partner in corporate social responsibility projects. So I am now skipping because I will be interested to give few case examples to you. So one interesting question Mr. Mrityunjay Bhattacharya is asking that will it be easy to quantify social and environmental aspect by triple bottom line? Well, I mean, definitely triple bottom line, what we are talking about, social, environmental, economic, I mean, I have mentioned about that. So, I mean, that is the core question. You know, especially, see, there is another aspect, like, you know, that is, again, you know, as I said that, you know, broadly, how do we legitimize the social responsibility of business? Why businesses should do social responsibility? Now, triple bottom line, my interpretation is saying is that, you know, if you look at the bottom of the pyramid kind of perspective, it is looking at the society as a potential market, untapped market, more than anything else. So that, you know, when we are talking about why business should be socially responsible, because being socially responsible, you can actually reach out to that untapped market, which is actually the largest market and untapped market in the bottom line of the pyramid. But that is definitely a very interesting perspective by Professor Prahlad. I think, yeah, that is another interesting perspective when we are trying to understand that corporate social responsibility, that, you know, it is not that corporate social responsibility. Even if you see the customer segments, if you see the distribution of the wealth created by this neo-capitalist regime, it is actually at the top, the you know, the smallest number of people who are actually having the wealth and the prosperity, and in the pyramid, the bottommost, that, you know, the largest portion of population is the largest population, where they are excluded from this growth and also excluded from the market. So in terms of potential market opportunity, and also in terms of the requirement to include them in the market economy, probably, you know, the companies, the theory is saying the company should target to the bottom line of the pyramid to create it a more inclusive growth, and also to reach out to the largest section of the market, untapped market. Okay, so with that, very quickly, I will give you two examples probably on you know, good corporate social responsibility. One, as I said, that, you know, see, sometimes what we see is that, as I said, that, you know, there will be a kind of legitimating and, you know, issue that why business should do a kind of corporate social responsibility. Sometimes the business look at it as a win-win situation. So the business will do some social responsibility from where the business will also benefit in terms of their profit and in terms of their core business purpose. One good example is the Shakti Amma example, where this Hindustan Unilever, for, you know, some of the consumer goods, what they found is that, you know, if they actually engage the rural women in their marketing network, probably they can reach out to the furthest corner of the country, and also they can actually very effectively enhance the rate of sale of some of certain you know, category of product. In term, what will happen is that the women who are actually the women entrepreneurs who are engaged in this kind of marketing, they will also be economically benefited and socially also benefited because of their economic empowerment. So what they did is that they engaged a number of women. You know, they started it in Andhra Pradesh actually, and they trained them for marketing some of the consumer products of Hindustan Unilevers in the rural areas and the slum areas of Hyderabad, of Andhra Pradesh. And through that, what actually they saw that definitely their sale has has grown significantly for those particular consumer goods. And also, if you see that the reciprocal benefit has gone to the women who are engaged in marketing this, they call them Shakti Ammas, so that it's a kind of mutual benefit to the company and to the people. So that is one example. Another example I wanted to share, because of short of time, actually I'll have to go quickly, that one good project what even CSO Partners directly has worked on with ICICI Lombard was that a truckers project. So, if you know that truckers are the biggest segment for any motor vehicle insurance, and that is the biggest chunk, that is the biggest amount of revenue, and that is the biggest risk for any insurance company. So that when ICICI Lombard wanted to work on something on CSR, so we actually, jointly we thought that why not to do something about the truckers community, so that one is that is the biggest customer segment for the insurance company. And also, if we see that how do we can, through this particular program, can actually get some economic benefit and also offer some social benefit and social benefit to this particular community. So through this program, what we did is that we realized that most of the truckers, they are prone to risks, road accidents, because many health problems, what is preventable, and also that this is a kind of program we developed, through what we offered a range of services from eye checkup to thorough health checkup, and also giving specs to them in different areas of the highways, so that ICICI Lombard can actually offer these benefits to the truckers community. Through that, it is a kind of mutual benefit, because it in long term it will actually help to reduce the risk of road accident. On the other hand, it will actually reduce the risk of their insurance coverage, so that more road accident means more insurance coverage they will have to provide, so that if they can reduce the road accident, and if they can actually give that particular very relevant benefit to the truckers community, definitely in terms of business also they can save a lot of money. So this is another example where actually it is not irrelevant for the business, it is relevant for the business, but at the same time it is creating a mutual benefit to the customer segment and also for the company. So this is another example of good corporate social responsibility. Now with that, I would say thank you to all of you, and expect that in the next sessions, we have 3 more sessions in this series, where we'll be discussing about the CSR Act, the Companies Act, in that the provision of corporate social responsibility. In the 3rd session, we'll be discussing about partnership, and in the 4th session, we'll discuss about accountability questions of of civil society organization in this kind of change scenario. So I hope to meet few of you or some of you in the next sessions. With that, thank you so much. And if you have any further question, please write to me to this email ID, so that I can get back to you with more clarifications and guidance. Thank you so much.